We were just segueing into something that Ken was showing me off camera, and he doesn't have to take his pants back off to show it.
No.
Okay.
I was saluting the flag and everything.
He was looking for a life that would give him the feeling of being worthwhile.
All right, welcome to another episode of Between Two Amps. Today we have a very special guest, as always, narrated by myself, Fred Ziomic, and Niraj Kane. Our guest today, you probably know from the phenomenal grunge band Swivel, such international hits. Got to give a shout out to Comfortably Bummed, one of my favorite songs of all time, and his primary project, Unearth. Big warm welcome to Ken Susi on Between Two Amps. Thanks for joining us, dude.
Thanks, dude. Comfortably Bummed. Those are my Christmas albums where I sing with my tongue out and my pants off. It's amazing.
It really, tongue out and pants off. Where does the tongue out go in the signal chain, and where does the pants off go?
They go everywhere. It's
okay.
It's kind of a blurred
Effects
lines.
loop. Okay.
Yeah.
I
started singing Betty Davis eyes into my drummer's ears in the van, and then one day he wanted me to record it, so I just made a bunch of hits. I just took a bunch of hits and changed all the lyrics, sang it like an old guy. But Comfortably Bummed's an important song because like it tells the true story of the road from the musician's perspective.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good segue into, what was your, kind of a chicken and the egg question. Like, did you get into music first, like wanting to play music, or did you get into punk first, like going to shows, and that drove you to want to pick up the instrument? Like, what was your journey?
I got into girls first. And then I was like, if I hold this, it's gonna get me girls. So
wow, that's a bold statement for being from the punk scene, because I knew that if I was gonna get a guitar, I was like, that's the best way not to get girls is to play in a band.
Totally true. But you didn't grow up in Danvers, Mass, It's like Danvers.
I did not. No, yeah.
It's a whole different scene, man. No. Honestly, like my dad was in a surf rock band before I was born, and he was a huge fan of the Beatles, Beach Boys, that type of stuff, the Animals, like all that surf rock. So I was just always in the car listening to the stuff he listens to, and next thing you know, I became a fan of music. And then my brother and my sister are actually better musicians than me. So my sister is a on-off Broadway pianist and vocalist, and my brother is a super shredder guitar player. And I actually didn't take any lessons. I just watched my brother play, and then I kind of picked it up off of whatever he's doing. But he's still better than me. But I don't care. I'm more known.
That's awesome.
I think that's how it works. You got the originator, and then you got the
yeah.
The next in line usually gets all the credit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I was just super hyper focused on sports as a kid. I played hockey and soccer. I actually got scholarships to do those things, and it got to a point where my local band at the time was starting to do well. We started touring Jersey, Philly, all that stuff, New York, and we got out of Boston because we weren't in a cool band like Niraj.
I was in a cool band.
He was in a super cool band. Like if you were in Hope Conspiracy in 1998, I mean, you could get into any club you wanted, for free. People roll out the red carpet. But Unearth, like, we weren't the coolest band. We weren't signed to like a sweet label or anything. But we got lucky. We kind of found our own path.
And look who's still playing shows. Not us.
Yeah, but you guys are the best ever. Like, I loved you. I loved your band.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I remember us playing shows together in. We definitely played a couple shows. It was a gymnasium one time, like with like guys from. I forget what was that band. The singer from Killswitch was in a band that was on Ferret. Do you
Blood
remember
Has
that?
Been Shed.
Yes. It was
The heaviest band ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was I think yeah. So I remember talking to you at that meeting you actually at that show.
Yeah.
God, that was such a long time ago.
We played, that was Uxbridge, and we played Hellfest together a couple times, and there was a upstate New York show that we played where myself, my guitar player, when we first started drinking heavily, we got drunk with your singer, which he didn't really drink either, and we all destroyed our own sets, and we were just terrible, but there was no one there, so it didn't matter.
Is that the one where Kevin broke his foot on stage?
I think so.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. I remember I was doing like guitar spins, and then like at one point I got tired and just sat down in the middle of one.
Yeah, I think the biggest dude at the show ended up like stepping on Kevin's ankle, like stage diving, and then was like, "Oh shit!" and he broke his leg.
Those are the days, man. Glory days.
Yep.
Well, what was the first like punk show you went to?
Well, I don't know, Niraj, you didn't grow up in Massachusetts, did you?
No, I grew up in Chicago. So when I went out to because it was me and the three other guys are from Minnesota. So all of us, I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, and so we ended up like getting to Massachusetts. So we didn't really know much of like the early like local scene, except for the what was the place in Worcester? The Champ? No, what was the place in Worcester?
Worcester was
the Space.
The Space.
Yeah, the Space. Yeah, we knew about that spot and a couple other spots, and the Rat just from like legend,
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is, yeah, that's totally true. I grew up going to shows, and my dad was cool with letting me like do certain things that like most parents wouldn't. So like one of my first shows ever was he dropped me off at the front door in Salisbury Beach to go see Death. That was like my first show when I was like 13. And I met Gene Holgram outside the venue. He signed my CD, and later on he filled in for my band, so that was a huge honor. And but no, I got to see Death on the Individual Thought Patterns tour. Maybe it might have been 91, but either way, there was that. And in North Andover, Massachusetts, there was a barn hidden in the woods, and Cave In, Converge, and a lot of really great bands, Overcast and stuff, came out of there. It was called the Red Barn. And there's so many good shows. Like I saw Cave In like when they were like a local band, like when they were like way before anybody knew who they were. So
North Andover is considered the Merrimack Valley, right?
Yeah,
I got my geography mass geography right.
Yeah. I mean, it's technically Lawrence and Haverhill and all that crap, but the scene was really cool there. So my father used to drive me there all the time. I used to not know anybody, and I made friends, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, and just started going to shows. So
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it kind of also happened to me later on in life because I didn't have any friends that played sports that liked the music I liked, and so I would just do that by myself. So as I got older, I ended up going to Westfield State College for 1 year, which is out west in Massachusetts, and I didn't have any friends there that listened to heavy metal either. So I met up with the guys from Catch 13. They were kind of like a straight edge hardcore band, and I met one of the kids at a radio station thing, and the next thing you know, I met Scott Lee, Adam D, like all those guys, and I became friends with them organically before any of us had like our bands,
Got it.
So just by going to shows by myself.
It's so funny that there was so many, like the fashion of sports was big and hardcore, but actually playing sports, not so much.
Not so much.
Korn crushed that, Adidas jumpsuits.
Did you first you're like, okay, I want to start playing an instrument. So were you already playing an instrument before you started like listening to like heavier music, or was it something you kind of picked up? Like you're like, oh, I saw this band, I want to do what they're doing, kind of thing.
No, actually it was complete opposite. So I grew up again on the Beatles, and like one of my favorite bands still to this day is Air Supply. And I listened to stuff like that, and then I found like Iron Maiden, Metallica, Crowbar, Megadeth, like all the cool stuff. And I just started I was fixated on Iron Maiden and heavier music, and my brother loved glam stuff, so I would learn all the little sweep arpeggios and like little things at like 9, 10, 11, whatever. And eventually I just kind of said to myself, like, I want to make my own shit, because I always felt like everybody was doing like every single local band sounded like one another. Like whether it was like a straight edge hardcore thing or whether it was like a metal thing or whatever. But once I like started seeing, I was writing stuff like Caven when Caven was actually doing that, and they used to play shows with Piebald, and I always used to say about the two bands, I was like, I don't understand what they're listening to and why their music sounds like that because it's so unique. So, but then again, like I was just, my mindset was there too as well. So I just think like it was in the air at that time in Massachusetts, and that's how like we Unearth started like creating our own sound at the time.
Got it.
I feel like that's a good point, because like to someone that's coming into music now may not understand, like, because at that time I feel like it was there were less subgenres, there was less separation of bands, like where like a band like Piebald is playing with Cave-In, and everybody's kind of going, it's like it's a punk show, and like that could mean a wide variety of music, like from straight up metal to Crass or Discharge or whatever, but everybody's at the same show. And I think that's kind of a key, especially like for a band like Unearth, where it's at the forefront of what became metalcore, I guess. Like that wasn't always its own genre. It was a type of music that existed with bands like Piebald.
Well, it's actually really funny that you say that. Like, I mean, you talk to Slybomb, he thinks he invented metalcore, but whatever. but no,
that would go to Integrity, I think.
I know. I actually personally think that the true band that invented metalcore was like Cave-In. They were the ones that started singing, like what today's metalcore is.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll tell you this, I got shit on so much because I had a Steve Vai Universe in like fluorescent green. I tried out for, this is a funny story, I tried out for Reach the Sky because like a friend of a friend said that I was a good guitar player, so I met Ian and all those guys, and they were really, really nice, and I tried out, and Ian pulls me out of the room and he's like, "Hey man, you're a really good guitar player." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." He's like, "You're just not for us." He's like, "But you should start your own band because you're a good guitar player, but you just don't fit this, right?" So that felt really good to me, that like someone who was in Reason Enough, like someone like that I looked up to, like thought I was a good guitar player. And I was called Metal Kenny. Like literally people called me Metal Kenny around the scene because nobody was listening to like Obituary and Entombed and all this crazy metal shit. It was like Harvest and like all those bands, like all the straight edge hardcore bands. So as I'm trying to start a band, everyone's like, "Oh, it's Metal Kenny. What kind of metal shit are you listening to?" And I'm like, everything. I don't know,
So I had the same thing, like, because there was 3 Freds at James Madison University where I went to school that were all in the kind of punk scene.
Yeah.
So there was Hardcore Fred, which was not me, by the way. Then there's like an Art Fred, and then there was Metal Fred. I was Metal Fred.
Metal Fred.
I had a metal show on the local radio station, and I'd started playing in Darkest Hour at the time, and like throughout the early Darkest Hour career, like especially with the hardcore labels like Revelation, Equal Vision, Victory, even at the beginning, were just like, well, this isn't hardcore, like what do we do? This is metal.
Yeah.
But then like metal labels were like, hey, you don't have long hair, you're hardcore. So like the hardcore scene was like,
thing at that time.
You're too metal, and then so you can't be on this hardcore label, and then the metal labels were like, you're too hardcore, you can't be.
My whole thing was that like I just played what I wanted to play, and people became friends with me regardless or whatever, but like it really does take the time in the garage with like a certain group of guys or other guys in order to fine tune that sound. So like we're leading up to Unearth, we were in a band, but I found Buzz, it's really funny, Buzz, the other guitar player in my band, he was playing a Battle of the Bands or some show at Beverly High School, right? It's like the town next to me. And I never met Buzz in my life, and he had this band called .04, and I remember they were like metal meets hardcore, And I was like, but it wasn't like Caven. It was more like Obituary and Overcast meets like breakdowns and cool shit. And I remember saying to my friend, like, I was like, this is the only band I could ever play in. Like, I would love to play in a band like this. And sure enough, like a couple years later, through some local shows, Buzz called me up and asked me to try out for his band. And the singer hated me and said he was going to quit the band if I joined before I even plugged in the guitar. I don't know what happened. I literally showed up for band practice, and the guy was like, I'm not fucking playing with this guy. And
what?
Yeah, because he had some friend that he wanted to try out. But he just didn't want to deal with me. So literally, Buzz and I hopped in the car and drove... Like we drove to Winthrop from Danvers, which is 25 minutes, and then he apologized to me all the way back. And then the next week, he's like, hey, would you try out again? And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I tried out, and then we became a band. But the singer ended up being the guy who we kicked out. And I took the whole band and brought them over to Unearth, and then we actually started having a fan base.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So would you say that you started, like, was your first gear, like, influenced by the bands you listened to? Like, I'd say, like, in, like, for example, Fred and I were talking about this in the first episode, that for me, it was like when a band would come through town, we would see their gear and we'd be like, oh shit, that's what I want, right?
Yeah.
For us, like, Chicago had its own thing in the 90s where it was like, oh, Unbroken came to town. They're all playing Fender M80s, solid states, right?
Yeah.
We're like, everyone's going to go out and get those, you know, or like whatever it may be, you know? And for us, I grew up in more like the punk scene early on, not metal scene. So it's like, if I would have showed up with a lime green BC Rich bitch, you know, everyone would be like, what are you doing, dude?
I'm being awesome.
That's a great guitar. yeah. You know, so how do you say that influenced you as like your first guitar, you know, or like,
well, there's a couple.
First amps.
Yeah, there's a couple stories that go with that for me, and it was some really heartbreaking stuff. So I had my first guitar was a Mako, like the company that painted cars back in the day. They made a guitar. I just so happened to have one. My dad probably just bought it for me or whatever. But as I got into the guitar a little bit, they bought me an RG 560. My brother had a whole arsenal of Ibanez's, and because he played Ibanez, I played Ibanez, and they got me a guitar.
Okay.
So I only played on six string from the time I was 9 to 13, so just a few years. And I became obsessed with down tuning, but I didn't know how to like change the strings on my guitar or use heavier gauges. So I bought a 7 string. Literally there was a store that had the Universe multicolored swirl Steve Vai guitar for like $1,000, or they were selling it cheap because like he was going out of business. And there was the lime green one for $800, and the swirl got taken up, and I begged my mother. I was like, please, like, oh my god, I need this guitar. So so I played that for a bunch of years. So that was kind of like my primary guitar, and I'll come back to that. So I always loved Crowbar. Like Crowbar was like my the tone that I wanted. So I messed around with ADA rack gear. I messed around with Marshalls, but didn't
I remember that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't know how to like mess with it. Like I didn't know how to use an overdrive in front of it or anything. So it wasn't until I found like the PV Supreme 160 to where like it was a solid state amp and it kind of had that sound. I just kind of worked with it, and Buzz had one too, so we kind of like did that thing, and then we moved to like the Digitech rack gear. That stuff was trash, but we even recorded a record with it. And like
that's funny.
Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that, because I had before I started practicing with HopeCon, you know, when we were still in the Midwest, I showed up with a Digitech 2101, like FX processor and like a carved-in power amp. And they're like, get the fuck out. You know, get out of here. You gotta get rid of that.
Yeah, you guys were like...
didn't push it.
Yeah, you guys were mandated, like, every single band in your kind of, like, genre had to have, like, a Mesa Boogie rack mount or a head. Like, it's always Mesa Boogies. So, in Gibsons, right? I totally appreciate that.
I was a 5150 guy.
Good. So, you're ahead of your time.
Yeah.
But another amp that I had early was the Crate Stealth. I have 2 of them back here. That was a Merrimack Valley hardcore scene amp, and I loved them because Lee Jackson, now that I know, he made those, but they sounded fucking awesome. So, but I still rolled with the Supreme, but I didn't find a 5150 in overdrive pedals until I met like Adam D from Killswitch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That amp still holds up.
Oh, it's the best. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well, that's my favorite. It's my favorite high gain amp of all time.
Yeah.
Like, people give me shit for it, but I'm just like, that thing is a fucking beast.
It's awesome. It does everything you want to do. But going back to like my guitar situation, as my band was like, I was in another band and I was playing with Buzz a little bit, and like, you know, .04 had 6 strings, so I was using 6 strings again. And when I tried to start Unearth, I still had the green guitar, and I kept getting quote unquote made fun of. Like, there was a band called Trial from New York, I think it was Trial, or somebody like that, or whatever, some victory band, and they're like, "Oh, you guys sound like Korn," and because I had the Universe. Now, mind you, the guitar is worth fucking like 10 grand now. Fuck them. I sold it though. So I sold it because I knew I couldn't get away with having that guitar, and I needed a 7-string. So when we disbanded .04 and turned into Unearth, I sold that guitar for like $2,000, which was, you know, $1,000 more than I bought it for, or $1,200 more. And I bought 2 S-Series Ibanez's, and I built my whole career on those. Like, I literally played those for every show until Ryan Premack from Poison the Well told me if I didn't retire the guitar I was known for, he was going to steal it from me. So I had to retire it. So, but yeah, like, I had to sell my Universe. Luckily, I bought another one, but and you know, I regretted it the day I sold it, but I knew it was for the right reason.
So whose guitar? What signature guitar was that? Whose guitar was that? Steve Vai?
Steve Vai. Yeah, it's the Loch Ness
okay.
Green. So the swirls are really hard to come by, and the Loch Ness Green is really, really hard to come by. And you probably have seen the black one with the green dots on the inlays. That was the most common back then. So I was kicking myself because it was like there's only a few hundred made of those,
okay.
and they become extinct every single year. So as there was one time, like recently, I had a few of those guitars, but Mike, what's his name? Mike from, what's it called? Ibanez, not Norigo, but whatever. Artist relations guy. I saw Steve Vai like looking at his guitars, and I said, why is that guitar $8,000? It's made in Indonesia. And he's like, because if you made one in Japan today, it'd be worth like $12,000. And I'm like, well, what's up with like all the old school, you know, Universes? And he's like, you should buy all of them. Whenever you see any of them, you should buy them. So I went out and I bought one of every one of them, and I spent I spent like $8,000 on, because like it's the one. It's like it's impossible to find, and that was the last piece of the puzzle. But everything else I got like right before the boom happened. So I got all those guitars.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fred, you're gone behind on this. What's going on?
Oh man, like actually my first real guitar, like we mentioned on the first episode, was an S540 LTD that I got new in like 96 or 95, somewhere in there. But it's
let me just preface. Oh, go ahead.
I was go ahead and preface, actually.
I was going to preface by the fact that here's where you get the two different kind of camps here. These guys are dropping numbers that I have no idea what guitars these are. Like, if it was an Ibanez, Jackson, or Charvel, I was not playing them, even though I saw people playing them.
Here, I'll help you as we talk. I can do this. I can do this. It's important for all of us to know.
Well, Ibanez went crazy with the numbering on all of their models. Like, none of them actually had names. It would just be like the body style, like an S or an RG or a Universe, and then like now I don't know how many numbers they go up to. Like, there's like 4 series, 5 series. Like,
was the RGs the one that like a lot of like kind of like vegan metal bands were playing?
I don't know. It was split. There was like the S was pretty popular.
Can you guys see our screen?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So this is the one I sold, and this is the one that was popular at the time.
Actually.
Yeah.
So I have one of those, and then I have the.
Oh, those look cool.
Yeah, the disappearing pyramid inlays were sick. I had all these catalogs. I used to drool over them.
That is a pretty awesome finish on that thing.
But it's so fun because, like, at that time, like, at mid to late 90s, like, there was such a stigma around metal guitars, especially, like, in a lot of the punk scenes where, like Kev was saying, it was like all Gibsons and all rectifiers. You know, by the end of the 90s, like there was I can only remember like a couple bands that, like, I mean, Earth Crisis was playing like the Jackson Stealths, and I think they might have had an S series. One of the dudes.
They were playing Charvels at first, I think.
Let me show you this though. There's a cool story about this guitar. So the Ibanez universe, right? So Steve Vai had the specific painter guy that he wanted to paint his guitars. So they only made X amount of them, and like that was the first run in 1990, whatever, right? Then Ibanez, like he was on his tour bus, and someone from Ibanez showed up, and he's like, "Oh, your new guitars came," and someone from Japan tried to cut that guy out of the mix who was doing the swirls. And instead of paying him, they were like, "Oh, we're gonna do our own." So then, like so Japan started doing it, but they didn't have the paint. So the paint looks way different. And Steve Vai like threw a fit, and then they shipped all of them to like Canada and Europe because like he was so upset. And then finally he was like, "All right, make it a production model." But you could check this out if you see this green guitar in these ones, like how they're the
That's a little different. Yeah,
the colors are kind of vibrant and kind of like cool. Well, Ibanez tried to sneak one past Steve Vai, and they called like MKRs, and they call it that because it's mustard ketchup relish. It's like basic primary like red, yellow, green. So they started making guitars that look like that, and Steve Vai called them out, and they were like, "It's not like this. It looks like that." It wasn't as cool.
Yeah, no, I think having the pink in there is a must-have.
Yeah. So I'm a nerd.
I don't know, man. Coming from Chicago, ketchup, mustard, relish is all good.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Yeah, just put a hot dog on the fretboard, you're good to go. That's a fucking ripping guitar.
I'm all about Al's beef or Portillo's.
Portillo's, yeah. I grew up on that place. What was your first amp? Would you say
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, my first amp was definitely like a PV, like the PVs with the metal grates in the front of it.
Yeah.
I still have that same cab. It's here, and at the time I had a Supreme 120, so that was my first half stack.
Okay.
I didn't jump into a practice amp. I was already half stacking it.
That's good, because Fred was playing out of his parents' stereo.
Oh yeah.
Well, my dad was in a surf rock band, so in my basement was always drums, always basses, and other things. My brother had a Marshall amp for a short period of time, but he mainly had rack gear. Probably the reason why I'm still obsessed with rack gear. Like down here is like my rig, and it's a rack gear. So I don't know. I'm just that guy.
Well, I think this is something I was thinking about the other day, and it's kind of like interesting to see where people's entry point into heavier music or punk or whatever, like whatever their entry point was in that time period, kind of dictates what is passé after that. So like, as an example, like I came into it through Headbangers Ball, like mid to late 80s, so lots of rack gear, lots of stacks, and it was like the cross section of everything from Rat, Wasp, Morbid Angel, Entombed, like this huge cross section of music, and that was what got me into heavy music. And then immediately following that was hardcore and punk, and what was happening in the periphery of that was like, or in mainstream, was like nu metal. So nu metal to me was like, I can't get in with this. But like to people that came in later 90s, it seems like nu metal was the entry point to that, and that seems to inform a lot of the gear choices that people make. Where did you get into heavy music? Was it like 80s Headbangers Ball, or was it later? Like
it was straight up hair metal. Like so now, if anybody watching this has ever seen me play live, I am somewhat of an actor on stage, I guess, if you could say that. Like, not in the early days when I played in Garage. I was kind of a little more straight and, narrow. But now I'm kind of like, blowing horns out of my ass and foghorns and shit and doing stupid stuff. But anyway, I always, so my first concert, my first, my first concert my mother held me through was Air Supply. My second concert, like with my family, was like Kiss. We went to go see Winger, Slaughter, and Kiss, and
Yes.
So Kip Winger did this thing, like they were the first band on, and I'm 9 years old. I'm wearing this like little Kiss jacket that I made at my house, and this guy does this like weird bass swing down to a knee, and all the girls just basically were scooping out their vaginas on the ground, like screaming, like just pulling out ovaries, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is like that, whatever that guy's doing with that pirate shirt on, with the hair on his chest, that's me. So I was obsessed with the theatrics of music, and that's like what made me want to play. And the whole like being a spectator in a big room was like, whoa. Like every time I go on stage, I always think about that moment, because it's like, if I can, make someone in the last row laugh or be impressed, then I've done my job for the night. If I'm playing in Italy with Fred, I'm gonna impress Fred because no one's at the show, and I'm like, acting like an asshole. But at least people remember that I fucked off the whole show because the show sucked.
Yeah.
But
Well, to be fair, the city shut down the next day because of COVID.
I mean, yeah, it was Milan during COVID, but whatever. I can brag.
Was that on the Prong tour?
Yeah.
Were you playing with Prong?
Oh yeah. But going to gear, it's funny. Like, I always wanted to know what Crowbar was playing. Me and Andy Williams from Every Time I Die became friends because the first time we met, I was like, dude, you want me to tell you how to get the Crowbar tone? And he's like, yes. So like, I knew all this, like all these secrets and shit. And then, we played with a lot of bands, and I just pulled it up. I was obsessed with Rack Ear, and a lot of bands like Soylent Green and like other bands that were pretty damn heavy were using like overdrives with this Rack Ear, and I'll put it up on the screen. It's the PV Rockmaster. This thing blew my mind.
Shoot, I remember that thing.
I still have one, and it sounds really fucking good. It's like a PV Ultra. Or VHT Pitbull, like just it's kind of the same sound, just that with a really good power amp and an overdrive. Okay. So I still fuck with that all the time.
That's awesome, because I was like wondering, I'm like, whatever happened to that early like 90s, like mid 90s Rack Gear? Does anyone still use it?
Dude,
but that's clearly like, hey, that thing looks pretty good.
Behind me, it's in the back. I have a VHT 2150, which is like I'll show you real quick. VHT 2150. This is like the best shit ever. Like it's like these power amps. There's so much.
Yeah,
I remember those.
And the thing is that you can make any amp sound awesome with these because it's pushing so much iron. The transformers are massive in them, and there's like 6 KT88s. So you throw that with any preamp on top of it, and it sounds amazing. Now the other thing that
I think we have our episode title: "Pushing Iron with Ken Susi."
Yeah, pushing iron.
Yeah, the grinder edition.
The Soldano.
So
yes.
this is the
Soldano. I remember that one.
So this is the preamp that I use with that. This is the best tone that I have. It's the VHT. Kind of looks like this with that power amp like stacked up like like these two, the bottom ones.
Yeah.
Best tone you could ever get. And people.
Wow. Those Soldanos are kind of unobtainium these days, the original ones.
You can't buy them, and I bought it right before they became extinct. But the cool thing is what I'm using is a VHT 2150, and or like for live I use the Fryette 292, which is like a smaller condensed version.
Yeah.
But I'm using the Synergy SLO modules, like these things, through it, and they're unbelievable. It sounds so good.
Is that a power amp or just the preamp?
This is a preamp, but they're interchangeable. Like you could take them out and slide them in and out.
Oh, wow.
And exchange them. This one's a
That's awesome.
But the guys from the company, like Diesel and Soldano and VHT and all that, they all made these modules for the company. So they're only preamps. They're really good, but it's all about the power amp. So if you put a shit power amp in front of that, it's gonna sound like shit. But with the VHT, it's indistinguishable to my Soldano X88R.
I remember. Do you remember that one power amp they had? I think it was the Mesa. They had was it called the Coliseum?
Coliseum was good too.
It was so loud, and I was
Yep.
like, "That's what I needed." But they cost so much money at the time. I was like, "Oh, I can't afford that, so I'll just get a Carvin." And I was like
Yeah.
a fucking audio power amp, It just sounded like shit. It was just like hiss the whole time, just hiss.
Yeah.
I couldn't even get anything to sound right. Yeah.
Those were really, really loud, and they were good. The VHT, the only reason why I like the VHT is because the KT88s give you more of like a robust low end with like a very toppy, glassy, like Tosin Abasi and I do a lot of guitar clinics and stuff, and he stayed over the house a few times and come over and whenever he's in town.
Okay.
And he
Tosin Abasi from Animals as
Animals as
Leaders,
Leaders,
for
yeah.
those that are
Okay.
not familiar.
He played out of my rig, and he was just like, he was laughing because he's like, what is this ancient piece of gear? And when he started playing, he was like, yo, he was like, he said, I forget his words exactly, but he's like, this is kind of, he said, it's kind of low key, like what every amp wants to sound like. And I'm like, yeah, and he was saying like the frequencies were like, it's like a piano, you get the top note and the low note, I was driving around with this guy. His name's Frank Falbo. He's a luthier, guitar guy, whatever. He works on the Fluence team. He has his own guitar company, but we do a lot of like dealer visits and stuff like that. We go to shops and talk to people on behalf of fishermen. So we got in this conversation, like a Radiohead song came on the radio, and I was saying like, man, I wonder what their tone is, because it's so cool and unique. It's like linear, but it's like cool. It doesn't sound like an amp to me. It sounds like a pedal. Yeah. So he goes
famously on Creep, the jet
right.
is
okay. So so Frank goes, I think that's a Marshall Shredmaster. And I said, oh, that old school Marshall, I'll look it up right now just so there's, put this in, hold on a second, Marshall.
Is it a pedal? I've never even heard of it.
It's a pedal. There was three. There was the Governor, there was the Drive Master, and then there's the Shredmaster.
The Shredmaster
I
looks
think it was
like,
three.
It looks like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that is the Radiohead tone, and that's what he was telling me. And I said, well, how much are these things? And I went and looked online. It was like $350, and I was like, it's a pedal, So, so he picks up the phone and calls Brian Wampler from Wampler Pedals, and he goes, hey man, like, I'm with my buddy from Unearth. He wants to know, do you make anything that's similar to a Marshall Shredmaster? You know anybody who does? And he's like, no, I don't make anything like that. But he goes, for $26, he goes, you could buy the Joyo distortion pedal, whatever the hell.
I love that company. Yeah.
He goes, they stole it. Like literally they stole the schematic of what it is, and it sounds awesome. And so we bought them that day. Me and Falbo, we $26, whatever. It's worth owning it just for the story, and it's identical to the Marshall Shredmaster. So,
wow,
that's incredible.
Great. That's a good little nugget, because cheap pedals, man. That Joyo company makes them. They stole. I don't know if they stole schematics or not, but I mean those pedals sound pretty good for $30. I mean they're not going to last you because the housing but fuck it.
I mean, it looks like this up close. The Joyo, whatever this is called.
Oh man!
And I can get 15% off of $27.90. It's worth every penny.
I'm gonna order one. That's incredible.
Yeah, check it out.
Do you put what do you put that in front of?
I have a old school so a lot of people like to use Fender amps to like as a clean like amp to put pedals in front of, and a lot of people go with Basemans, and they're worth a lot because blues players play with those. But I own I own a Fender. It's called Showman. And that is probably the greatest pedals amp that there is. So you can like play a really robust, clean amp and use whatever in front of it, and that's the amp you want to do it.
So
and
the Showman, is that solid state or tube?
It is a tube. It's from 1960s or 1950s or no 66. So let me show you my trick, and this is another Frank Falbo trick. I don't even know how to spell Mesa Boogie. What is it called? AQ. So here's Niraj. This is if you're interested in this conversation a bit, right? Because I could tell.
Yes.
So this is what I do, and this is the best trick that there is. You buy a Fender Showman, And what you do is you put a pedal in front of it, right? But in between your guitar, it goes guitar, this pedal. The next pedal would be this one. It's a Mesa Boogie graphic EQ, and you see the output level up to like 12 o'clock on the left. Well, I would put that thing mainly flat, maybe take out a little bit of the mids, but you could turn that all the way down to like maybe 9 o'clock. And the really cool thing about that is that you can dial in at a low volume the breakup in the amp. So you have your pedal being distorted, you have the EQ, and you're turning down basically the volume of the whole amp. But then when you go to the amp itself and you turn up the volume, you start hearing the quality of that distortion. So you could turn up to 8 and 9, it's still on like 2 and really quiet, but you could find the right breakup. And then when you need volume, you go back to the EQ pedal, and then that's where your primary volume is.
Oh wow! Okay, so you're almost like attenuating the sound, the amp a little bit, right?
With the
EQ pedal, yeah.
And then when the singer comes over and steps on the EQ, and you just blow out everything. Got it. Okay.
I walk to the side of the stage and I say, "You see this asshole, Fred?" And then you go, "Yeah." And then we have shitty Italian pizza that tastes like cardboard after the show.
Oh my god, that was so hilarious. That Italy was probably the worst pizza that I had that entire tour.
I have a video of us all just opening up the pizzas and being like, this sucks. Every single one. It's bullshit. Touring sucks. For anyone who's watching, touring is the worst.
Oh man, it's the best and the worst.
Did you guys, like, when you first started playing shows, were there any, like, I guess playing in like local shows and hardcore shows, you have to get used to playing with no PA, or just some shit going wrong, or like, what are some, like, some of the stories that you have? I mean, all of us, like, there's definitely shows that I've played but there was no PA and we had to plug into the bass amp for vocals, like shit like that. I was like, you haven't earned your stripes unless you've done that shit.
The early days were like that, obviously, and that was awesome because I think it builds character. If you can withstand a show like that, you can handle any type of situation there is. So the only time I ever really got spooked on stage is like never at a show like that. You could throw anything you wanted us, like electricity's out or the PA doesn't work. Like none of that ever bothered me because I was just cranking anyway. But like when you play like the Worcester Palladium or a large venue and your PAs are not working, you feel like you're in outer space. You hear your guitar and you don't hear anybody else around you and you're like, oh shit. That's when things get bad.
Yeah. I had a situation where we played like a bigger room like that, except it wasn't like everything. The reason why everything went out was because my whole stack fell onto the monitor guy's board. the whole stack. And the dude was freaking out. He's like, you guys owe me all this money, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, shit, let's fucking pack up and get the fuck out of here.
Dude, there was a point where I never cared. And then we got in a bigger band, like, where it mattered. And then I started caring. And there was this, and I'm not, like, a confrontational person, but, like, there was this one night. And this one rings... I was bowling a turkey that night because I almost killed somebody that night. Like two people, actually, not just one. I won't tell the second story because I'll probably go to jail or get canceled. But the first one is like this guy, and I'm playing, and the front house engineer, the side fill guy is like mixing, and my monitor was so loud that it was distorting and crackling, and I'm wearing earphones, and it hurt. I'm wearing earplugs, like real ones, and it was bothering me. So my move politely is, can you turn it down? And he's like, fuck you, like whatever. He was being an asshole. So I was like, fuck this. So I like turn the monitor on its face, and I'm like, I'm like, this is much better because it's just basically pounding into the stage. Guy comes over, flips the thing over again, and just like, fuck you, like being crazy. Ooh. And I'm like, dude. So I flipped it back over. I go to Buzz's side, it's blaring loud too, so I'm just like, whatever. Buzz, like, he's pissed. The guy comes back over, flips the thing over, flips him off. And at this point, I'm like, this is Australia. I'm like, I'm going to kill this guy. So, like, I literally grabbed the floor monitor. I just stopped playing guitar. and I put it on my shoulder and I walk across the stage and he's mixing. The band's playing and he's like looking at me like, what's going on, man? Is the monitor broken? And I meant to just throw it down in front of him, but I threw it on his foot, a big one. Oh! And I looked at him and I go, you're fucking embarrassing yourself, you fucking asshole. Like, I was like, I'm going to fucking kill you. You're embarrassing yourself. And like I literally broke his foot into 1,000 pieces. And this is when Unearth had money. So like he was going to sue us. But luckily, like Niraj, as you know, like when you have friends and they happen to come to town after you, they can handle a situation. So made a few phone calls and that problem went away.
Yeah.
I was like,
we can leave it at that. We know how that one works.
Yeah, I was like, this guy's gonna sue me. I'm like, oh, those guys are playing there next week. I'll text them. So got away with that one.
Yeah.
So
stage, yeah.
So I was gonna add, like, so going back to the, the PA goes out, like your monitor's gone, big venue, whatever. Do you feel like, is there anything that you learned from playing like VFW hall shows where there aren't any monitors, like, and having the experience of playing all of these DIY shows helped you better equipped or made you better equipped to handle like those adverse bigger room scenarios or debacles?
Well, if anybody knows me personally like you do, Fred, I don't give a fuck. So so there's two ways that show can go. You can either pout and complain and throw a fit, or you can do what I like to call explore the space. And that's what I really like. That's when I work on all my stage moves, like the things that don't matter. And like, cause I know at this point, like the show sucks for me. I already blew it. And now I'm going to just entertain at this point. And that's how I roll. Cause what happens is my band will probably be pissed backstage. And then I'll say, how many shows do we play here? They're like 200. I'll be like, all right, well, this one's on me. I'll get the next one. When you have your bad show, I'll give you the thumbs up too.
I mean, I think that's a good way to look at it instead of getting pissed, because I used to get pissed. I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do about it right now, you know?
Yeah,
so
but you also
just,
But you also didn't take off your pants and like dry hump your amp like I do.
Oh no, I did not. I did not. I didn't know that was part of your repertoire.
I take off my belt and my pants and I whip the amp like it's a horse, nice. You know.
Or it could go the other way towards Statue Man.
Oh, Statue Man's good.
Yeah,
he likes Statue Man.
Don't move at all.
Yeah, when your band's playing a bad show and you like before the tour were like, we shouldn't play this place. Like, hey, we never have a good show here. Can we just skip that one? And the band's like, no, we're gonna do it again for the 5th time. And when we swore the last time we were there would never do it, that's when Statue Man comes out. Now Statue Man, he's different. He doesn't move at all. He just plays and doesn't move an inch. And looks at Fred side stage, goes, the show sucks. Statue Man. Love Statue Man.
Did you have like I guess like, you know, when you guys would play shows, would you like kind of modify your rig for certain shows? Like if it was for like a, you know, bigger venue, small, like a VFW hall, you know, you're like,
in the old days,
we wouldn't like if we're
okay. Good. No. Say what you're gonna say.
Oh no, we were just like, we're playing a small. Like I was always like, why do we have to carry the fucking fridge into the fucking basement? And we're like, no, we're gonna do
always
it.
Has
and we
to
just
be there.
Like, half stacks, full stacks in the fucking basement. I'm like, all right, here we go.
my thing is, since I you know, I bring usually if I know the tour is gonna be good, most of them are not, but if it is gonna be good, I'll bring 4 cabs, 2 dummies, 2 regular ones. When I used to back in the day, I used to be very conscious about like how I used to like if I played a full stack and they were stacked, I would have my power amp would be like the top cab would be a lot quieter than the bottom cab. The bottom cab would because I wouldn't want to blow my face away, but I still wanted that volume up there. But like mainly what I do now is like I enter a stage and I put all my cabs like off the wheels and onto the floor. I don't care if they're sideways. I do like the resonance of the cab hitting the wood or whatever it is. So those are like little things that I do that I'm conscious of. But like I hate to sound like a party pooper, but Unearth, we have a computer that gives Nick the click tracks behind him, and my rig actually plugs into that rig, so I don't have a pedal board. So everything is behind the stage. I play my guitar, it's on, and inside the patches inside the computer, it flips on and off my lead tones or my filtered tones or whatever.
Yeah, I know a lot of bands that do that. What are you using? Are you using you guys use Ableton, or you guys have a separate interface that you guys are using with like a fractal or something like that?
No, well, I have a I actually got off of all that shit. I have that synergy shit, but I use any gear, whether it's a pedal or rack gear, has MIDI most of the time. And and if your pedals don't have MIDI, you can plug all your pedals into a MIDI unit to spit out one signal. So that's like the one hurdle. But then I run a cable to a M Audio MIDI thing, and it plugs in directly into the computer. So there's no power amp, no headphone amp, no, like Nick has a headphone amp and all that shit. But all that happens is like he just gets a MIDI cable, it plugs into a unit, and as the computer triggers, it just changes patches. Now I built the live rig, and we use Ableton, and the reason why I like Ableton is because it's a player. It's like you can actually shuffle the songs in order. And it becomes really handy because if you're going to make a set list, you just drag it. You're not taking like full sessions of audio and moving them.
True.
Well, just wanted to say, because I think we're getting close to time here.
Yeah, I think we get,
So Ken, anything that you want to plug or talk about that's going on with you?
Yeah, I do Fishman stuff, Fishman Fluence pickups. It's new technology. I don't want to get completely into it, but like I used to use Seymour Duncan, EMG, DiMarzio, like all those pickups in the past, but these pickups actually blow away anything I've ever used. Multi-voiced, made with a new technology, still an analog pickup, not a digital thing. It's still analog, still made with magnets and all that cool stuff. But it's like literally like this is a modern series humbucker, ceramic and Alnico. It's built off of a precision coil, a 48-layer precision coil that was actually NASA uses in order to transmit signal in the outer space. It's like that clean of a sound, and Larry Fishman figured out a way to make a pickup out of it, and it literally is the most noiseless, responsive, cleanest pickup ever. And and because there's no like initial winding and it's not being wound with copper wire, it actually every single time I switch from like voice 1, which would be an active sound, to voice 2, which is a passive sound, or if I'm using classic pickups, a PAF or a JB kind of sound, it's like a guitar tech went into my guitar and installed a new set of pickups like on the fly on a switch. So
they're incredible. Because you sent me the Mike Ibanez pickups, and that completely changed that. I have a Jackson bass that I put those into, and it's incredible.
Well, bass, like low frequency stuff, it gets that piano effect, like it's wide sound, and it's amazing. But like just a quick like addition to that, like any pickups for the past 80 years, when you wind a pickup on a coil on a bobbin, if Seymour Duncan was like, hey guys, like this is the pickup, like go make this, and he hands it off to the factory and a machine spins out all the correct winding, every single pickup. And the only reason why I know this is because I work at Fishman and we did the test, but like you could buy any pickup, like the same pickup, you buy 20 of them, and if you could shuttle them in and out of your guitar quickly, they vary all over the place because winding is inconsistent. It's like me asking you to like tie your shoes the same way 500 times. It doesn't happen. So I always, the big story here is that I had like an Ibanez endorsement. I would have like 20-30 guitars, and it would come time to make a record, and all my guitars are kind of made of the same woods and stuff, but the producer would be like, oh, this one sounds good, and oh, this one has that bite and all that bullshit. And what I've realized is that like later on in life, that I used to think that I only had one good guitar out of all these $8,000 amazing guitars that I have, and sure enough, I found out that the pickups are just inconsistent. So
interesting.
That's crazy.
Got it.
Yeah, they vary.
I guess this is a question in regards to like sound. Go ahead. We're talking about like sound and stuff, and but you're plugging the pickups. What were you playing before you had yours and Fishman's?
There's pictures of me as a 9-year-old kid with an Ibanez with EMG pickups. I use an 81.
Okay. Anyone, okay. All right.
And
yeah,
and if I
classic.
didn't want an active pickup, if I didn't want that Metallica
Yeah.
tic-tacky sound, I would use a JB Seymour Duncan. So, or Duncan Distortion. But what I can say is that now that I'm older and like when I joined up with Fishman, I went in there with the best endorsement ever with EMG. Like they would like fly me places. They would pay me to do events. Like I went in there and I literally brought my Ace guitars, and there was $500 guitars or $800 guitars that were smoking all my OG guitars. And
Yeah.
I got to the point where I was like, I don't know if Fishman's going to like make it with these pickups, because I don't think that they're an acoustic company. Like I don't know how they're going to break through. So I not only did I like believe in the product so much, I thought it was the best invention for electric guitar pickups since the Floyd Rose, which was in the 90s or the 80s, sorry, the 80s, 70s maybe. I went to Larry Fishman and I said, it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm taking a huge risk, but to ensure that this works out for me, I would like to work for you and help you with this, because I don't want to see these pickups like go away, or and I don't want to ruin my endorsement over that. So I started helping them out. I didn't ask for money. I didn't want any, but now I'm an employee and I work for them, and we sell a shit ton of pickups, and is a good reason because they're fucking awesome.
Who are some of the people that are like you guys have like endorsees, if you will, artists that you guys are working with right now?
Yeah. My signature roster is, and I'll go from signature on out. Tosin Abasi, Javier Reyes from Adam Mills' Leaders, Joel and Adam from Killswitch, Steph Carpenter, Devin Townsend, Sonny Landreth, the greatest slide guitar player, blues player, Greg Koch, amazing player, Will Adler from Lamb of God. That's my signature roster. Keith Merrow's on there. But then there's other players like Matt Heafy and the guys from Cannibal Corpse, Ryan Bruce, he's an opinion leader online, and then you got Sarah Longfield, who's like a internet celebrity, really great guitar player, Jen Majura from Evanescence. There's way more than I like Wolf Hoffman from Accept. It's Andy Sneap from Judas Priest and producer.
Oh, okay.
Like anyone that's tried these things is like losing their minds. Like the best story I have is that I'll leave you with this. Satchel from Steel Panther, probably one of the greatest tasty lick guitar players out there, right? He's just unbelievable.
He's kind of a monster.
I met him years ago randomly, and we became friends like organically. But like I didn't talk to him for a long time, and I thought like, oh, our classic pickups, they're not active and passive; they're just passive sounding. They do require power, but they're just passive sounding. And I called him and I said, dude, you still using JBs? And he's like, yeah, that's my thing. I'm like, I'm gonna send you a pickup, just try him out. So I sent him some pickups. Didn't hear back from him. Called him 4 months later. Dude, you try the pickups? Nah, dude, I didn't get around to it. Call him another 4 months. Dude, did you try it? No, I haven't tried it yet. Another 4 months go by. I was like, I go, are you free today? He goes, yeah. I go, I got a dude. I'm sending him to your house. He's going to install the pickups. Do you have like an hour out of your life to try these things? And he literally goes, dude, I like, cause you're a cool dude, like I'll let this go. But he's like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I said, dude, you know me. I go, if these don't rule, I'll fucking never ask you to play anything ever again. I'll lose your number. How about that? And he laughed and he goes, all right, cool. Send him to my house. So the guy shows up, Frank Falbo, installs the pickups, whatever. I guess like he tried the pickups for 4 minutes. And it took him like 8-10 months, whatever, to even try him in the first place. And he just like, he deflated. And he picked up the phone. He's like, I'm so sorry. I will never not answer your phone call. Like he gave me like the biggest apology ever. And I was like, dude, no, like, I'm glad you tried them. Did it change your life? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, you're on my roster, right? Yep. Okay, cool. It was awesome. He's like, my only problem is like, how many can you send me? I'm like, as many as you fucking want. Just let me know.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
man, well,
Fred, you got
Ken,
anything else?
No, I thank you so much for coming on to the show and talking all things 7-string and Statue Man and crappy pizza
and old rack gear, which I love.
Oh yeah, dude, this went all over to great places. Plus, I have a new pedal I gotta go get.
I mean, you order it, you're not gonna be bummed, but just make sure you use a good pedals amp. Like it has to be a clean, like a Fender Bandmaster or a Fender Showman, but that pedal is important. The what's it called? The EQ is important if you have that amp. So what I would suggest is that you get the stupid Joyo pedal, go to a store that has the amp in question with the pedal in question, and run it, and then go, holy shit! Like, you'll flip out.
I mean,
Can't wait.
Yeah. Fenders make the best, I think, like, canvases to put pedals in front of, for sure, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, the Showman is I think, their best pedals amp. There's only one other amp that's really good. The Morgan. Oh, actually, it's two. Morgan makes one. I forget what his deal is, but the amps that Tosin uses sound good. And there's another one. Wampler makes it's called like the Bravo or Bravado or something. That's another one too. But I get the Fender. It's probably more reasonable. $8.99. You could probably find one on Craigslist.
Nice.
We'll do it.
I think I might have one. I think I might have a Showman in my house. Was it? Did they make a 112?
Who says that? I think I might have one of those amps in my house.
There's a 212 cab, but here I'll show you real quick while we're on the conversation before we leave.
I have a Fender in my house, but I don't know what it is, but that tells you my knowledge on technicality on amps. I'm like, oh, this sounds good. So
this is the one I have.
Oh, yes, I used to have one of those, and I it was beyond repair after I had it for a while.
So if you're looking for this, right? This is the one you want. This is the 66.
Got it.
Right here, the 70s version of this, right? You see how it says drip edge here?
Yeah.
Drip edge means right here, this little you see the silver around the weird whatever? Because they make it like that without the silver thing. That means that it's the same exact amp as this with the circuitry and everything, but they just used up all the parts for that, and they used the drip edge, so that was an indicator. If you see one of these amps of the 70s ones without the drip edge, that means it's the newer version. You don't want it.
Got it.
You want this one, or you want this one.
Got it.
So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, yeah. I don't have that amp in my house, everybody. I used to have it. I used to have a Bassman that was from the 70s.
Basements are good.
It's crazy how much those have skyrocketed in price. Those used to be $250 all day. Now
Reverb.
There's a guy
$1,000 and up
in Chicago, or outside, like maybe like Bolingbrook or whatever, Illinois, or whatever the fuck. It's called Kramer Guitars. He has a Marshall cab with a Fender Bassman that is the best blues amp I've ever heard in my life, and he refuses to separate them to sell it. And to be honest with you, I almost bought it, and the guy that was with, Frank Falbo, he goes, "Don't buy that amp." And I said, "Why?" He goes, "Because you're not gonna appreciate it the way some guy that's looking for that tone is going to appreciate it." And I agreed. I was like, I would own this amazing amp, but I don't play blues, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? You're right. Gonna let this one go. Let this fish go.
Also, and thank you for not playing blues.
Dude, why is it that every fucking demo video has to fucking have a blues lick? No one's playing anything else.
Dude, Statue Man plays sick blues.
Yeah,
check him out.
I bet.
I can't wait to put
on that note.
I'm gonna put out a solo album and call it Statue Man.
Oh, dude, I want to be a guest on that.
Okay, deal.
Thanks again, Ken. It was good seeing you after a long time.
Oh man.
Awesome. I'm gonna end the feed here, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Take care.